Nice to see you, mate.
Nice to see you too. How are you?
Good. I'm still loving this place. It's like we're sitting opposite each other now, though. So
this place. Let's tell people where we are.
Oh, we're at Soho Radio, which is our new podcast studio. Just down the road from our office, which is quite handy.
So this is our first one here, isn't it? Because I'm thinking the last one was David Kolbusch.
Well done,
DK. But that was in the old gaff. This is a step up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like comfy seats. There's like coffee and tea.
Coffee's good, yeah.
Have you tried the jacuzzi yet?
Jacuzzi has not been on. I've got cold water in it.
Oh, no, because for my back, I got it.
Electricity's quite expensive.
Anyway, so I think fittingly, this is a massive step up. And
we are going to experience a massive step up today. No offence to previous guests.
No, I would say, so we've got Mark Tutssel, or Tuts, as he's known, in the global advertising community. He is a massive noise. I mean,
he's only won a couple of awards, though. It's not like
he's got 600.
Not like he's got 600 lions. Let's just have a look at your notes here. Oh no, it's over 600 lions.
Yeah, gazillion pencils, a million Clios. I mean, the guy is, and I knew briefly when I was at Leo's in London, he was there. But obviously, I know Nick Bell quite well. And Nick and him were partners, but he is just.
And we've talked about some of the work before with Gary and Vince on, and
the Sundial, which is amazing.
Sundial,
we've posted loads of stuff on McDonald's all along. We've been wanting to have him on. It's a bit like Trevor Beatty. There are certain people whose work is amazing the way it's done across billboards all over the globe. So, and they're not just billboards; it's out of home, it's stunts, isn't it? It's happenings. It's it's so many things we've been trying to get him on for. So. I think we've timed our run quite well because he's retired now.
Yep.
And I think his wife just dropped him off upstairs.
His wife, he's knocking on the door outside.
All right, mate, come on.
Hold on a second.
Come on, you legend.
Wait, no, should we leave him at the door? Wait there, please.
Come on. We've got to use it all the time we've got.
Yeah, we have. I'm sorry.
Okay, part one.
We're just joking. Tuts.
This is part one, Mark Tutssel. Mark Tutssel, or Tuts, as you're affectionately known, welcome to Behind the Billboard.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on today. I'm sure you're aware, we've been trying to get you here for ages now, so we're really stoked you're finally here in our new studio.
Upgraded.
Yeah.
We're first class now.
That's extremely impressive.
Yeah, it's quite sort of, spread out. We've just finished in the spa, haven't we? That was lovely.
No, huge thank you we're at Soho Radio now, which is good for the commute from the office, but great podcast facilities.
Nice and central.
Here. Yeah, very good.
So Tuts, I think of all our guests today, you're comfortably the most awarded. I read somewhere on the internet last night, at last count, 600 Cannes Lions, including 10 Grand Prix, 2 D&AD Black Pencils, first ever white pencil, 25 yellows. I mean, it goes on, Grand Clios, many, many more. So a huge and belated welcome.
Thank you.
To one of our most important guests. I feel like you should have been on about 2 years ago.
We should probably keep a league table of people's of awards to sell, because I think that no one's going to beat that. You're the
So how is life? What are you up to at the moment, Tuts?
Well, I've just retired after 40 years in the industry.
Wow. Congrats.
And wanted to start a new chapter of my life and do other things. Stepped out of the world of advertising in the United States of America and straight into the COVID.
Yeah, lovely.
Which was a bad call all round. And so obviously it's taken its toll on so many people and equally on me. But no, I'm looking forward to the future. But obviously I still stay involved in the industry. I still speak and I still judge shows. And I want to help, I want to give back something to the industry that gave me so much. So I'm always available, and I still creative direct for many people within the network around the world. Yep. I still see the work in its early stages, and I love to be involved in making work because we operate in a maker culture, and I think it's important to make work as beautiful and as succinct and as perfect as possible.
So is that still with Leo's?
With Leo's, obviously. I mean, I as you know, I ran the Publicities group, Publicities Communication, and I was the chair of the creative council for that, and was instrumental in evolving the new operating system, which is currently the Power of One, which I created with Maurice Levy.
Wow! And
again, it's just an open source, collaborative, creativity without borders model. And it's the first of its kind, and obviously many networks, many agencies are copying it now and applying it. But it's not so much about collaboration; it's about curation.
Right.
It's finding the right people, the right expertise, bringing people together around an idea to grow that idea, to evolve that idea, to perfect that idea, and bringing their skill set to the table. So it's an exciting time for everybody, and this sort of borderless creative model, which we've been operating for the last 15 years.
I was going to say that's sort of ahead of its time a bit when you did that. You instigated that at Leo's, right?
Yeah, Leo Burnett about 12 years ago, Creativity Without Borders, and it was designed to give people the opportunity to shine. You know, if you were a young copywriter, art director in Manila, or a copywriter, art director in Lagos or Buenos Aires or Bogota or London and New York or Chicago, wherever you may be, why shouldn't you have the opportunity to work on brilliant brands and brilliant projects?
And was that a born out of a frustration that you weren't seeing enough of the talent around the world? As you were saying?
No, I think diversity is in thinking is really important. Obviously, we talk a lot about diversity in the purest sense, but I think bringing different mindsets, different approaches, different ways of thinking, different cultures together makes for a really interesting mashup of thoughts and comes to life in beautiful work. You know, if I look at some of the best work that we've done in the last 10 years, Hashtag Like a Girl was the product of London, Toronto, and Chicago. Small World Machines for Coca-Cola was a result of Mexico City, Sydney, and Chicago. Samson was run as an open model. McDonald's was run as an open model. And I always wanted people to have that opportunity. If there was a Super Bowl commercial for McDonald's or for General Motors, why couldn't you have a shot at that?
Yeah, like an open brief.
I know it's an open brief, but giving the right people the opportunities, and that's why I use the word curation. It wasn't a free for all. Anyone can have a shot at the title. It was designing teams, the right people, the right skill sets, and the chemistry. Getting the chemistry right, and that requires knowledge of people.
Yes,
and I've never been a manager. I've never been a leader. I've always been a coach. And my goal has always been to coach people to their full potential, and it's that age-old thing, practice makes perfect, but I don't believe that. I think perfect practice makes perfect. And it's making sure that you bring out the best in people. I don't think you can teach creativity, but you certainly can coach talent. And it was designed to radically collaborate and co-create a better project, a better model. And then once you bring people together, they naturally adhere.
Yes.
They naturally find each other beyond the project in question. Yeah. So that fluid ecosystem then comes to fruition. And the work that came out of it was phenomenal. I mean, I look at the work for Samson. Within 4 years, Samson went from a nothing brand in terms of creativity and advertising terms to the best of the best, taking the Creative Marketer of the Year award at Cannes. The following, we had 3 years back-to-back. McDonald's was named Creative Marketer of the Year, Samson, Coca-Cola, and they were all products of Creativity Without Borders.
Yeah, they can. I mean, there's so much Cannes success in your sort of portfolio of work. Is that obviously a place very close to your heart? Would you still go there, say, this year, if you weren't involved? Would you like a little bit of time away from it now? Because Dan and I will be there, and Dan said he's going to buy us a Jeroboam of rosé if we rock up,
if he can lift it up.
Yeah. Or is it nice for you to go? Can have a little bit of a step back now?
I think my first award was a Cannes Gold Lion.
Yeah,
and I remember, and it was for United Distillers for Gordon's Gin. And, it was a huge poster campaign, which we produced 150 posters over the course of 5 years and basically dominated the streets with that.
Right.
And at that time, nobody went to Cannes.
Really?
Cannes started off in Venice, in St. Mark's Square, hence the Lions, and then fluctuated between Venice and Cannes, Cannes for the first few years before it finally found a home.
Wow.
And in those days, it was purely film. And it was mostly film production companies. But when they introduced press and posters, That was the first time that I started to think about it. And actually, John Hegarty was chairman of the jury in 94, I think it was, 92, right. 92, 94. And he said, we must go there. And once you won a Gold Lion or a Grand Prix at Cannes, we used to congregate at the Hippodrome in Leicester Square to pick up the awards, because nobody made their way down to the south of France, because it was always about D&AD. D&AD was the pinnacle of our industry, particularly being British. But you realise when you see the work, there's so much brilliant work being produced geographically around the world. And that's inspiring, and it was fresh, and it was new, and it was challenging, and it was competition. Yeah. And so there was a natural sort of turning of the tide where people started to go to Cannes over time. And as I forged a relationship with them and an understanding of what they were trying to achieve, creativity was really the key that unlocked the door for me and for our relationship. It is a festival of creativity. It's not a show that's designed to do all sorts of things that people talk about. It was a show that was there to celebrate, endorse, support, create the creative product. Yes. And for me, Cannes is inspiration, is motivation, it's all the things that you want from a show. And it's a learning curve, it's a standard, and it's the best of the very, very best.
Is it also a useful vehicle for you, and you're leading these global creative teams and obviously global accounts on things like Samsung and McDonald's? Is it also a useful vehicle to get that talent together, your creativity without borders? Did you use the event for getting them together?
So, I thought it was really important to bring the people who did the work to Cannes. And I think the thing that's happened with all the tech companies and all the client companies, and it's become this huge thing now, which is important because you obviously want everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. You want everybody focused on the power of creativity and the value of creativity. And you want everybody to be celebrating brilliant thinking, new thinking, ideas that break the mold and creativity at large. But at the end of the day, I always wanted it to be stimulation and inspiration for the talent, especially the younger talent. Yeah. It's fine to bring the hierarchy to Cannes to celebrate it and congregate at the Martinez or the Carlton Terrace, wherever. But I was much more interested in the Palais de Festival, and my words to everybody was basically, if you go to Cannes, spend as much time as possible in the Palais, because that is literally a source of inspiration for everybody. I would spend every second I had in the Palais just to learn and to be a human sponge and absorb as much as I physically can from that moment in time.
I remember when I was younger, when I was a lad, it was all about D&AD at the beginning. And then Cannes came into more and more. And then I remember, we'll talk about this later on, but when I saw Sundial, the McDonald's Sundial, it sort of blew my mind a bit and thinking, can you do that? Can you do that outdoors? Can you do that? And it, honest to God, it made me so, it sort of opened another little light on in my head, thinking you can do anything, on the streets. Whereas, if you sort of, at the time it was like D&AD, Creative Circle, British TV, campaign, press and, it was that kind of little world. But then when you suddenly saw these things sometimes from Cannes, and you're going, oh my God, look at what they're doing in America. Yeah. And it was, that can only be for the good of creatives, right?
But I agree. But I think, we've been doing that in Great Britain we've done it well many, many times. When I first came to London in 79, 80, oh my God, the quality of work was off the charts. The Cromwell Road was the world's greatest poster gallery.
Right.
Everything that made it to the Cromwell Road was beautiful.
So, and just for our listeners who don't know, so Cromwell Road why was it special? What is it?
Well, it's the main artery into London from the airport, from the M4 and from Heathrow Airport. It's permanently gridlocked. So you spend your life in a car looking left and right and admiring this beautiful communication that presented to you in these gigantic 96, 48 sheet poster formats. And it became the destination for anybody with a big idea. Yeah. And obviously there was an expense attached to it, but it was worth its weight in gold.
Because there was a lot of special builds there, wasn't there?
Well, that's what I mean. If I go back to 1983, one poster that really did inspire me was the Araldite poster from a brilliant agency, FCO, who were producing incredible work at the time. They produced stuff, like Nike with McEnroe, when McEnroe swore at the umpire, and holding a Nike shoe, saying McEnroe swears by them.
Yes,
they really did some fantastic stuff. And the Araldite poster for me was sticking a card to the poster. A Mark IV Cortina, a yellow Mark IV Cortina, stuck physically by Araldite to a poster on the Cromwell Road, just blew everybody's mind. Yes. And the genius about that is the creative team then didn't put their pens down and sit back and admire the work that they produce. They added that second level to it, which I always look for. What's that secondary part to it? And it also handles the teapots.
Yeah.
So it's super glue.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to present it with visual drama, an exquisite art direction, and really make you sit up and think, grab you by the eyeballs, and entertain you and reward you for the time you spend with that communication. And that for me was the gold standard. And that was
so that's late 70s, fast forward to now. So you're enjoying some retirement time and still eyes open around the industry and doing things. And obviously here in London today, where do you think we've got to in terms of an outdoor industry for creativity?
Well, I'm always looking for work, so I'm probably not your average human being.
No,
so
sure.
I'm always looking out for great work. So I travelled in this morning from the country, and
did you take a photo?
I did. I did take a picture of a Euro Star poster.
So this is the billboard at the end of your street.
The end of my street. So a poster for the Eurostar.
You're looking stern. Was it any good?
Well, it was so many ideas on a piece of paper. It was a Mensa test. I had to decode it.
I'm looking forward to seeing
this. It had an ostrich with a bowl of mules, with a headline that didn't make sense to me, and it was about flying is better, not flying is worse than taking the train, and that the ostrich, I assume, was this, I can't fly, and anyway, it was just too much hard work, and I just sort of walked past it, and you think about that, your first job is to stop people. People, you are looking for ideas that reward them, and how do you stop them? How do you, as I said before, grab people by the eyeballs, and then impart a message that you feel as though I participated in something worthwhile. If I look back to the 70s and 80s, and I'm not going back retrospectively to say in my day it was better. No. But it was better. It was a million times better. I went through work yesterday. 1980 campaign used to do poster awards.
Yeah.
And if you go back through the archives to 1980 and start there, the winning campaign was for Perrier. Yeah. And at the time, sparkling mineral water didn't exist in Great Britain, and Perrier was introduced into the country, and they produced the O campaign.
Yes.
And it was just a simple thing that H2O, EAU. Beautiful, exquisite photography, great art direction, simple idea, distilled down to its purest form. Had a look, had a feel, no calories, au pair, and then they produced a beautiful bottle in Cubist style called Picasso, which now this poster is housed in the Design Museum and in the V&A. And it was a work of art, and that took the gold. But alongside it was also the UK Conservative Party poster, Labour Isn't Working. Right. Next to it was Heineken refreshes the parts other beers cannot reach. Wow. Next to it was Weetabix. Next to it were Economist posters. Right. So it was a period of time where it seemed everything. I'm looking through rose-tinted glasses here, but it seemed to me that everything had a standard and had a look and had a feel.
Is it that the
immense competition then?
Is it that the crap stuff is instantly forgettable? Do you think we suffer from that over history, or do you think it's that it was a better time for creativity?
I think posters in those days, for me, were the sort of, the purest form of an idea.
Yeah.
And to have your idea on the streets was everything. When you think of posters, really, they're sort of like community notice boards. Right. And they're exchanged between people and the public. And if you think of we don't have a divine right to people's attention, and that's what most clients and most agencies and most creatives make that mistake, is they assume that people are interested in their work. They're not. And we couple that to human behavior and human understanding. Our attention span is less than a goldfish.
Yeah.
So first of all, you have to stop me and interest me. First of all, you have to capture my imagination and my attention. And we believe that just stopping you and capturing your attention is enough. It's not. That's the stepping stone. Unless then you reward my imagination, allow me to participate in it. Let me think about it. Let me be rewarded by it. And I remember many years ago when Silk Cut introduced itself. Silk Cut was a female cigarette, and they produced these purple posters with a slash through them. And they were everywhere in the streets, and people were looking at them and going, "What's all that about? What's all that about?"
But they were involved.
They were involved, and they wanted to participate in it. They were intrigued by it, and it was so pure, so simple, cut right back to the bone that you had to decode it. And then once you realize it was a piece of silk, it's cut.
Yeah.
Oh, it's silk cut cigarettes, and it really rewarded you for getting the idea itself, but also the way it was done, the beauty of it.
Well,
it's fresh. It was original. It was transformative, and it completely changed the game. And that was on the back of obviously Benson Hedges, which sort of led the charge with the pyramid, the pyramids and the surreal campaign that they created. But that's the type of work that I admire when you give reward to people.
Yeah, because I think, you respect the brand more and you feel like, oh yeah, they're involving me, rather than shouting at me in a language I don't understand, or just making something so blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
I've had to do nil work to be involved. Yeah. Why did you actually buy the poster? Whereas, like you say, we're going to come on to your work in a minute, but the Mercedes skid marks is a brilliant example of a narrative, a story, everything from a static picture.
But they're thought-provoking visual, and I think that's what you get from some of those. Some of the campaigns you talked about from Campaign Poster Awards in the early 80s, the reward is involvement in the idea, allowing people the headspace to work that stuff out and to involve them in the campaign. And I think there's been a number of contributing factors to why we don't have the time to put that effort in anymore. We've got, in terms of a creative community, we've got all these other mediums, we've got other things. Yeah. And I think, you're saying, Tuts, if the poster is the pinnacle, my work is going to be out on the streets. My art gallery is the streets. Whereas now my art gallery is 10 seconds while someone's scrolling through their social channel. It starts to feel more, okay, well, we'll take a frame from the film and use that for the poster. It starts to, that's not the. But
if you think of social media, you're thinking of a blank canvas. And for me, a blank canvas, regardless of whether that canvas is a small square canvas on a screen, or it's a 96 sheet poster, or it's a television screen or a computer screen. We live in the screen age. And people are looking to screens to be entertained, to be rewarded with content that's interesting, stimulating, relevant to their world, useful, and exciting. And so if you look at social media, art direction, beautiful art direction, exquisite ideas, simplified, distilled ideas that people can consume in a nanosecond. That is basically art of poster. And if social media could learn those skills and that art form, how potent and beautiful that would be. Because most of it is stuff you just scroll through because it becomes wallpaper.
And I think the ones that people have devoted that time to craft for the medium are the ones that stand out.
I remember one of our earlier episodes, we had Paul Belford on. We were talking just about this, and He said, a very slim banner at the top of a page is a 96 sheet Pro. So you should just treat it like that. And if people did treat it like that, we'd have a better quality of creativity. But, it's like Dan's saying, take the still from the TV or just say the price straight away. It's sort of lazy, isn't it?
Totally. Because, it's all about, it's not about the space it lives in, it's the quality of the thinking that resides in it. And so I take an example from McDonald's. We had to produce a poster for a perimeter board poster for Chelsea Football Club. And, we had ads at the time. Frank Leboeuf was playing, Patrick Berger was playing, and we had Leboeuf Burger, sponsors of the Football League. And then this opportunity to do a poster on the side of the pitch, on television. And, I was presented an idea and it said McDonald's. And I'm going, well, so, well, that's all we can do. We can only have the logo of the brand. That's all. So it can be Heineken, Nike, McDonald's, all around the perimeter of our ground. I said, but surely there must be another way of doing that. I don't know what it is, but you've got that shape, you've got that audience, you've got that word. Please have something wonderful there. They came back. They shuffled the word McDonald's into "Come on, lads." Then you've got the people behind the stadium. Come on, you lads! Come on, you lads! 60,000 people chanting the McDonald's name. Brilliant. And when you looked at it, even though it read "Come on, lads," you instantly read McDonald's because of the art direction, the look, the feel, the style, and the design.
When was that? I'd forgotten about it.
Oh, that was way back in
because it still works now. I mean,
it never
ladies as well.
It's timeless. But my point is there's a space. There's a blank canvas.
Go think.
Go think. And everything is the product of thinking. And you're always looking for fresh, original, transformative ideas. And if you don't find those ideas that truly display originality, that really truly display lateral thinking and skill in execution, you just end up with wallpaper.
Yeah.
And most posters are just wallpaper. And it washes over us.
Well, if you see, like you said, Heineken, Coke, Levi's, and it goes, "Come on, lads," you're immediately going to stop that one because you're subverting it, aren't you?
But it's inextricably linked to the brand. It demonstrates the brand understands the game
and the environment,
and is participating in the game, because you don't want to be a sponsor of sport, a sponsor of football. You want to be an active participant in football, and people want to be active participants in posters.
Was that Leo's?
To your point about skid marks.
Yes. Was it Leo's London now?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
So before we get into the bulk of work, your very first billboard, and I know you mentioned your first Cannes Lion, but was that your first billboard ad as well?
I honestly can't remember. I've been thinking about this. Probably the first time I ever took it seriously was with United Distillers, that then became Diageo. And I worked on White Horse whiskey and Gordon's gin. And we produced we pitched for Gordon's gin. And the brief was not to use green. Because if you remember the brilliant cinema commercials of the 70s, it's got to be Gordon's, those beautiful, gorgeous, green shots of the bottle and the dynamic music and that kind of immersive experience they created in cinemas. Don't use green. And we sat down, Richard Russell, my old partner, who went on then to do Honda Geur, we sat down and thought, well, that's just stupidity. We have to use green, but we have to do something with green. It just can't be green branding. It has to be a green idea that inextricably links green to Gordon's and make it synonymous with that and make it stand for something. So we said to the team that we're going to go in with a green idea. And they said, well, the brief from the client is not to use green. I said, I know. And we could get this so wrong, and sorry, but it just defies logic. Anyway, we were pitching against Low House Spink and the incumbent and a few other agencies, and we went in with a poster campaign that was literally a green poster with a headline. England's green and Pleasantland, and they're not dissimilar, Gordon's and Tonic, with the headline underneath. So you could see, you were asking people to use their visual imagination to see pictures. Robin Hood in Sherwood Forest shooting frogs with the Gordon's and Tonic. Right, so you were painting pictures in people's mind. And we literally did 150 posters throughout the country through the course of the 5 years. And it was everywhere, literally everywhere, changing with time and space and subject matter.
There was a Bloody Mary one. Right?
Bloody Mary was the one that the left was red was Bloody Mary for a drink against vodka, and then the right was extremely nice Gordon's, and that went on to win the Grand Prix at Eurobest and take a gold line at Cannes. And so the first time I went to the streets to inspect the posters was this campaign, because the green became so important. It had to be the green.
Yeah.
It couldn't be green. It had to be the green. And if you look at the green and start getting into the color and the art direction and the quality and just the execution, the skill in execution had to be perfect. So we had to produce a special ink.
Was it like Eve Kine Blue? Did you have like a Gordon's green?
A Gordon's green. Gordon's have a green, but we just replicated that green through inks. So the green had to be perfect. And when you're trying to do that on a 96, 48, 16-sheet poster, it was very, very difficult. But it was a brilliant story attached to it. There was this guy, he lived in a huge 16th century mansion.
Yeah.
In the country, and he requested a 48-sheet Gordon's poster for his mansion, which we suitably supplied, and he posted a Gordon's poster in this historic, huge 16th century mansion, which was the icing on the cake. But that was a poster campaign that really changed the game and changed the dynamics. We produced 15-second spots that were interspersed between commercials. Other brands were saying that we don't want to be anywhere near the Gordon's campaign because it's basically taking over everything.
I remember us there at the cinema as well. Yeah. I'd actually completely forgotten how brilliantly branded, very witty, very British that campaign was.
Yeah. Going back to it being your, one of your first billboards, do you feel like, and I read a quote from you about the streets are our theatre and we're after a standing ovation, which I think is brilliant, by the way. For you as a creative on that campaign and seeing it out on the streets, did that become an addiction for seeing your great work out on the streets and that hero moment? Did that make you more creative? Did that kind of infuse your creativity to do it again
obviously,
and again and again?
When you start off in the industry, to have your work published and to see your work come to fruition in the way that you designed it. So often work never comes out exactly the way you imagined it in the beginning. But that's why I love purity, and I love posters because they are the purest form of advertising, and that distillation that you require, that pure distillation of the sort of creative process, demands that simplicity and that style and that drama that you're always seeking to inject into the work. So when you achieve that, which we did. And we had an amazing client who said, now go and celebrate it. It's captured people's imagination. It's a participation idea. And the greater the participation of the audience, the greater the impact and effect of the campaign. So the more people wanted to be part of this game, this street game that we'd created of decoding. Left hand was blue, right hand was yellow. Well, that was the mother and father of Gordon, because blue and yellow make green. Yeah. And we started. Iceland happened to be just above Greenland. And this is the world's greatest gin. So we started to do so many things. The time to have this sharpener is at the end of the day, the first drink of the night. When you think of a lemon, above the horizontal of green, it's yellow going down with blue behind, and it's the sun going down at the end of the day.
It's one of those campaigns, I don't know who said this to me once, but you can just see the joy you're having, the fun. You've created this brilliant platform, this like core idea, and then it's endless, isn't it? I mean, you've just described 5 or 6 there, like you said, but you've probably got about like 100, but it's one of those campaigns you just feel, well, as an ad guy, but also as just a punter, you just want to see more. Just give me more, feed me this lovely campaign,
But what was lovely, it was because it demanded participation and you started to paint these images in people's mind. in the cinema commercials, we use sound design then to really, enhance that sensory experience, and that sound, the effervescence of tonic water at the end of it.
Yeah.
It was designed beautifully, and it painted it, and it just evoked this incredible feeling in people. And then people started to write their own ideas.
Really? They send them in?
They started sending their own ideas. And we had a client who started to write his own ideas. And every week we'd be on a plane to Scotland and present these ideas. Every bit. And it worked. At the end of the day, it's great to do great work, but unless it's work that works,
you know what?
Then
I saw that your Gordon story of the immersive audio just before I know we're going to run over otherwise. I remember a poster campaign from a few years ago, and it was for one of the soft drinks, but I think their line was "Try not to hear it," and it was an image of glass. Of ice hitting the glass and the soft drink hitting the.
Yeah.
I think it was for Coca-Cola, and then one was the fizz of the can opening, and it's
not dissimilar at all.
Yeah, it's straight back to that.
You made me think of there though. People say, "Oh, what's the account man ad?" And we always sort of me and Adam used to laugh about it and slag it off. But actually, that's brilliant, because if everyone can have an idea of what one-to-one ad is, or a Heineken ad, you're onto a winner. And I imagine, like you said, you probably had to, excuse the pun again, but distill all of these other things coming into you to get to the ones you really wanted.
Yeah, and it seems an interesting, an easy thing to do, but it's finding that one that has that secondary level. I'm always looking for ideas that go there. That's really good, but what's that? What's that little bit more that makes it magical?
Well, it's a bit like just the erudite thing. I love the way you described it. And then they could have stopped there. Could have gone, fucking hell, we
stuck a car to a poster.
And they went, it always also sticks handles to teapots. You're going, that's the genius.
But it humanizes that. It has a wink. It has a smile. It has a humanity to it. Yeah. And the most important thing for me is I talk a lot about rewatchability. In this case, reviewability. If I go back through my mind to posters I totally admire that were intelligent and engaging and hugely rewarding and on brand, ideas like The Economist. I never read The Economist. Management training, age 42. That beautiful red iconic background. That asks me to participate. That asks me to decode. I'm rewarded by that. And I've seen that poster a million times. And every time I see it, I enjoy it. I'm rewarded by it. Yeah. And that's the hallmark of the great posters, coming back to it. And we see so many things today which leave us with a smile. You think that's great, etc. But I think though there are posters through time and space that have are I think the pinnacle of what we're capable of doing. Yeah. Havianas is another campaign. If you go back to Absolute, that campaign ran and ran. If you look at the Perrier campaign in America, Leo Burnett America did the Altoids Curiously Strong campaign, which was voted the greatest outdoor campaign in the USA. Yes. But you could, in those particular executions, you could almost smell the mint through the art direction, through the color palette, how they use the color palette of Altoids beautifully, how Guinness used black beautifully, how Economist has become synonymous with red, Gordon's and green. Yeah. All of these are not decoration, because decoration is for Christmas trees. All of these are well thought through pieces of art direction, exquisite art direction that's serving the idea, serving the brand, and also creating a relationship in the people's mind about their brand that they choose, the brand that they love. Yes. And that's what I've always loved posters, because I think they're almost they're sort of the very symbol of advertising.
Yes. They're the start point, aren't they?
The start point, and I cite, John's beautiful When the World Zigzag, Barbara Noakes and John working on the Levi's campaign, which obviously then became part of the epicenter of his brand. But, again, smart thinking, original thinking, lateral thinking.
Yes. Well, we're going to dive right into the work now. Yeah. We've already alluded to some of it already, but we're going to go into the work for listeners to know that. So this is a two-parter. So we're officially in part one. of Mark Tutssel. And we'll do part 2 after. So it's no surprise that we're going to do this as a timeline. Everyone knows I like a timeline. Sorry, Dan. So in part 1, we're going to talk about your time here in London, in the UK, and how, what you created at Leo Burnett London. And then in part 2, we're going to hop over to the States and hear how you got on in Chicago. And spoiler alert, it all went pretty well. So first of all, Tuts, tell us about, just briefly, tell us how you were in Leo's, because that was obviously a decision at the moment which basically formed the rest of your career. How did you end up at Leo Burnett?
I was poached by Dawson Yeoman, who was the chief creative officer of DDB in London, and he left to move over to Leo's, and he wanted to build a really strong department. He wanted to bring new blood into it, and there were many people who currently work there, that were brilliant anyway. So he had this idea, he had this dream for Leo Burnett to make them as synonymous with great advertising, and that was a time when, Saatchi and Saatchi, were superb, DDB was superb, and of course you had the best of the very best, Collar Dickinson and Pierce, which were on a different planet and a different level to any other agency in town. David Abbott started setting up AMV, and so it was a city that was rich in talent, rich in productivity, rich in brilliant ideas, and he wanted to do something as successful as that. And he taught me a lot, about how to go about communication. Barbara Noakes used to work with him before she moved across with John. And that's what I started.
Did you go on your own, or were you as part of a team when you went to Leo's?
I went there, and I went there on my own with Carly Wills, and I teamed up with Carly Wills when I was there, and then went through various. Justin Rogers then joined me from WCRS. Then I worked with Richard Russell, who then went on to Wyden Kennedy, did the Honda Gurr commercial and many other great spots. And then I teamed up with Nick Bell, who he came over from Abbott Mead, and that was the sort of beginning of a really exciting relationship, and just we mirrored each other, but we both had that same goal and same ambition and same standard, and so it worked beautifully.
So we're going to go straight. I know the order is slightly out. I did spot some of my dates are slightly out, but we're going to start. A pretty high, a Grand Prix winner, the Mercedes skid marks poster you did with Nick. This is an incredible piece of work. Like we talked about earlier, it's a static image, but it's a whole story about obviously other cars that have braked and stopped to look at the car. Could you just give us a bit of background about how you came out with the idea and then how you pulled it off?
Okay, so it was interesting because there was Mercedes-Benz was obviously synonymous with world-class engineering, das Beste oder nichts, the best or nothing, engineered like no other car in the world. And what we realized through research is that people, that was green fees, that was sort of, common understanding. They drove the Star.
Right.
The Star was everything. And we produced some work for S-Class, which was voted the best car in the world that particular year by Motor Magazine. And we did some research in Weybridge, and there was a bunch of people sitting around in this research group, and we were talking about the price of the car, the engineering quality. They were leading the charge. Every major innovation in car technology was designed by Mercedes-Benz, from the safety cage, which was adopted by Volvo, to everything else.
Right.
And this chap put his hand up, this bank manager from Weybridge. He said, "Excuse me, why you show me your underwear? I'm not really interested what's under the bonnet. You're Mercedes-Benz, for God's sake. You are the best. We know you're the best. I don't drive that. I drive the Star."
Right.
And it was like, boomf. And everybody looked to it, and I said, but that is the most insightful piece of feedback that we've ever had. Drive the Star. So we don't have to justify everything. Sell cheap metal, sell engineering, sell the brand and what the brand means to people.
Yeah.
The value it creates in people's lives. They're driving this piece of perfection, but the human reward is that Star. So that was a starting point. What happened was even though it was doing extremely well in the UK, it didn't have the sex appeal of BMW. and there were lots of import cars coming in at the time. Toyota were coming in, we had Audi and other vehicles sort of, invading this particular space of luxury space. So they brought out the SLK, and it was this beautiful, beautiful 2-seater car. And we thought, well, this is an opportunity to change the game. There was no need to advertise whatsoever. There was a 2-year waiting list for this car.
Right.
So
I had heard that.
why are we advertising something that's 2 years in the waiting for? But we said, no, but this can be the shining light on the brand for the future. We wanted to do something that really celebrated the car. It's a brand new car that nobody had seen before, so you had to show the sheet metal. Yeah. But what we didn't want to do, what everybody else would do, the all-new X.
Yeah.
Big, sexy picture of car.
Big side-on
shot logo. And that's what everybody else was doing. But couldn't get away from that. We still have to show the car, but show the car in a lateral way, in an intelligent way, in an imaginative way. And there was an ad for a BMW, which we liked, which was basically a shot of a BMW, and it had 4 pin marks in the 4 corners. And that was on the wall. And I say, I love that idea. So beautiful that you want to pin it on the wall. But we can do better than that. That's a nice idea, but we can do better than that. But we played around with it. We opened it up to everybody because it was a great opportunity to do something special for an iconic brand. So the whole department worked on it, and we had a variety of ideas. And then I was driving back to Wales to see my mother on the M4, and I hit some traffic outside of Swindon, and all of the cars slowed down. And they slowed down, and I thought there must be an accident. 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And as I got up to where I thought the accident had occurred, there was this brand new Ferrari on the inside lane, just driving like a slug up the inside lane, posing, and everybody was stopping to look at this car. And I said, "What? That's it." I said, "There's a great insight into that. That's human behavior. That's what we do as human behavior. So how can you translate that to a 2-dimensional static space?" So then, how do you stop people in their tracks? Literally,
stop them. Yeah.
So we stopped, and then hence the skid mark idea came to light.
It's brilliant.
And then we executed it with Russell Porkers, and it was actually shot by Russell near Tower Bridge, the road behind Tower Bridge, and this beautiful road. And we sat down found the best angle. It was perfect. We shot, and we had these amazing images of this car. And we started to dismantle the scaffolding tower and put the cameras away, and everybody was running around cleaning up. And all of a sudden, the sun came around the corner into the street and threw light down the street, like God's light down the street. And all of a sudden, the car just lit up.
Oh, my God.
It was like a studio shot. And we both, sharp intake of breath, Russ and I was like, "Oh, get the camera, get the camera."
Yeah.
And we were scurrying around, literally trying to get back up ladders onto the top to shoot it. And this lasted literally about 4 or 5 minutes. And we captured that. So that's unretouched, real shot of a car gleaming out in the shadow. And everyone would said, "Oh, you shot that in the studio and you just photocomped it." No, it's a real shot, real live shot. And it was like a moment in time. So we had this incredible shot of the vehicle. And then again, this thing about going, pardon the pun, going the extra mile, how do you make it perfect? It's a fresh idea, it's an original idea, it's a piece of lateral thinking, but how do you really take it to the front door? And Mercedes had a lockup, which was the Mercedes-Benz logo, Mercedes-Benz, engineered like no other car in the world, introducing the new SLK.
Right. You had to have all
so you had this War and Peace in the bottom right-hand corner, this ugly carbuncle residing in bottom right.
Yes.
And without being precious about it, that really, how do you do something that's stylish, that appeals to a new audience, that projects the brand in a new way? So we, rather than just argue it from a design point of view, had to prove that the star was the most important thing.
Right.
Hence the story about the Weybridge guy. So we used that story that people drive the star. Then we chose famous symbols from the cross to the Mercedes-Benz star to logos, instantly recognizable. And this is one of the most instantly recognizable logos on planet Earth. So if I show you that star,
Yeah.
What does that say? That's Mercedes-Benz. So question number one, do we need to have Mercedes-Benz? No. Going back to the research, engineered like no other car in the world, do we need that? No, that's preaching to the converted. So no. So we slowly distill down to its purest thing. Wouldn't it be cool just to say the new SLK? You don't have to say it's arrived, introducing. It's obviously I've never seen before. So with just that beautiful symbolic logo that's synonymous with that's best or the niche, the best in the world, the best or nothing, and the new SLK, and they bought it.
Wow!
And it was that last little piece of the equation that had to be perfect. And then obviously it captured people's imagination. Went on to win.
It's so just before you go into it's so good to hear that, because obviously you look at it and you go, brilliant idea, brilliantly executed, fantastic photographer, nice stroke of luck with the light. But when I look at it, I go, oh yeah, and of course they put the logo in the corner. It's fine, and I know that would have been probably the most painful.
Oh, it was.
Knowing Nick, I don't know you as well as Nick, but knowing what Nick's like, it's like, so you must have gone back and back, and like you say, beautifully. I mean, that was quite eloquent the way you did it there. Like it was a kind of,
but it can't be a subjective thing. I think clients, like us, they want the best.
But and provided you rationalised it very well there. That there are some clients who go, no, I need to have this. This is what my boss says. But having a brave client, having someone who can distill that idea down, so we can rely on the years of Mercedes being the best or nothing.
Yeah. And what was brilliant about it afterwards was how this particular idea, which was a game changer in the automotive category at the time, was the reaction from the client. So when we went to pick the Grand Prix up at Cannes, that was the first time I've ever been to Cannes.
I was going to ask you about that.
So and it was film and press and posters, and it was sponsored by Time magazine. The auditorium went black. They played 2001 Space Odyssey. Everybody had to wear a black tie, the music, and then the lights came up and all of this stuff. It was the most bizarre experience for Nick and I. So I was wandering around in penguin suits, that we sort of hired from the campaign poster awards, and went on stage. And then afterwards, the client, the head of Mercedes-Benz worldwide, loved the idea so much that he bought a double-page spread in Time magazine to celebrate the idea. Wow. So he's paid a great deal of money to be in Time magazine globally, and then took a full page in the USA Today newspaper on the way back to the States to say every day Mercedes-Benz endeavors to be the best automotive company in the world, to build the best cars in the world, and it's satisfying to see that we have the best advertising communication in the world with the win of the Grand Prix at Cannes. Wow. So he was celebrating excellence in that subject matter, because this is a company that it's all about.
It's founded in that.
It's founded in perfection.
Yeah,
that's the best. Or nothing else. There is nothing else.
It's great.
And you obviously can't apply that all the time, but it's it was a game changer for Leo Burnett. It was a game changer for Nick and I. And
was it true you were going to go home from Cannes, but then Nick mentioned something once to me about what was that about you?
So we were staying at the Majestic Hotel.
Yeah.
And Nick and I were both football freaks, playing keep-me-up headers in the pool. The two Brits playing football headers in the south of France. As you do.
Like you did.
And was it Jerry Farrell, I think it was, one of the judges, talked about the idea, what you put in, we're up for a so-and-so. Oh, he said, I think I got a silver, and that was so pointless thing then.
Yeah,
and it wasn't. It was like, what are we hanging around for then? Because I'd rather get in this plane and we're back for the football on the weekend. And he said, and then we said we were going to go, and he went, "Oh, I'd stay, lads."
I was a wind up.
I'd stay. It was a wind up. So we thought, well, we must have done something, because he wound us up, and then acted and kind of tried to get us to stay.
Very good.
Right, let's chivvy us along because I'd love to know how soon after Skid Marks, obviously it did very well for the agency and very well for you. How soon after Skid Marks we see the next one, which is the new Jets?
Well, that was at the same time actually.
Was it?
It was again. Nick and I were sort of player coaches at the time, and both of us actively wanted to create, but never wanted to create a sort of disconnect with the department. We wanted to create great work, and there were a few projects that we took on, and that was understood. And this was an example. So we had United Airlines from Chicago, and obviously this campaign was an amazing campaign. Fly the Friendly Skies, probably the best airline campaign in the world at the time. And United had opened up a lounge at Heathrow for showering and.
Is there kind of arrivals?
It's an arrivals lounge. Yeah. So I mean, every airport these days have. This was 1997, so it was probably one of the first of its type. To basically, it's an airport lounge that had shower facilities. So Nick had this idea of new jets, a new jet. We had this again. Talk about visual coincidences, and you see so many ideas today that are designed to look like something that have no connective tissue to the subject matter. There's no coincidence. For me, when it works is, you see both ideas in the same visual, but it has a reason for being. So when you look at a jet, a shower jet, it's this beautiful shape, which also is a mirror image of a jet engine. So we produced this commercial, which was a close up of the engine, circular engine, roaring, building up velocity, and steam coming out of it, and you think it's the Rolls-Royce engine turning on, and then the angle towards the camera, and then you pull back, you realize it's the jet of a shower, and it issued this huge water pressure out, introducing the new jet. And then when we did the posters, there was an opportunity to do the posters. And going back to the British Gallery of Outdoor Great Work, anything on the Cromwell Road for me, being brought into the industry at an early age in the late 70s, early 80s, to have your work portrayed there needs to be. You couldn't put an average poster up there. No, I wouldn't be able to sleep. You couldn't do that road a disservice. You have to do something that was a little bit different. So we came up with this idea of now actually with a 96 sheet, you have the ability to have 2 jet engines, you have 4 jet engines of a jumbo. And we tapped into the water pressure of the catchment area, and apparently they called the police because everybody's pressure went right down.
I love it.
And they had permission, but they tapped into the wrong tap. So all we were concerned about was getting this absolute jets firing on all cylinders, smoke everywhere.
Was it on all the time, or was it?
This was special for at night time. We had certain times of night when it really.
I can't imagine being your producer. So you two go, it's got to be on.
It's got to be perfect, and it was a success, and they loved it, and they went on to win a gold line at Cannes as well. So we ended up staying.
I mean, it's one of those ones. I love it because it's just classic special build. You've got like bits stuck on the poster, running water, moving parts. You've lit it up. Yeah. It's like a sort of production,
And also, when you mentioned earlier on, I have this thing about theatre of the streets, and you have this opportunity to in this space to create something that really has the ability to reward people.
Yeah.
And you want people to sit up and take notice, and you want people to participate in, but actually what you're looking for is applause.
Yeah.
You want reward, human reward. And so for every great piece of work, it's not physical clapping, but inwardly there's that moment of joy that you've created in someone's life. Yeah. And it's like McDonald's, McDonald's have a line, "I'm loving it," and that was the product of another agency. It was seen as a tagline as such. It came with 5 notes, da 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 da, and it was advertising. And I work with the global CMO on the strategy behind that, and we got to simple, easy enjoyment. This is simple fare, easy to consume, highly enjoyable. And how do you create those moments of joy in people's lives? It's not going to change someone's life, but it's these little delightful moments of joy that you create. And when you think of I'm loving it is not a tagline. It's a feeling. So if you're at Manchester United or you're at Spurs or I'm at Liverpool and something wonderful happens, I say, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
That's a feeling, a moment of joy. And so the brief for me with the department and the global department was, does that line have the right to be on that piece of communication? Be it a poster, be it a TV commercial, be it whatever. I'm loving it is a human response to a piece of content. If you don't honestly believe that people will be rewarded by that, then it's off brief, off brand. And that moment of joy is what you try to do with outdoor advertising as well. And it's a great way of directing your thinking and analysing the quality of the work we provide.
I think that's why I used the word involvement earlier on as well. So, and I think all too often in our industry and in outdoor, certainly the media side is more guilty of this than creative for sure. But Neil, my business partner at Grand Visual, when we started up, we had this line that was about Grand Visual and what we did. And this came from Neil, and attention is important, but involvement is critical. And that breaking that down is, yes, you can get me the audience and the sites that I need in order to get people to see this thing, but unless I can involve them in my message, it's all wasted money. And I think that, certainly looking at not just the first two pieces of work we can look at from your London career, but the rest of it, you can see how you are involving the audience in the idea and rewarding them for taking part in it. So I think the New Jets thing is one of my favourites.
The time's moving on, and I thought we were going to do well. But I think we need to speed up a bit.
We do, I think.
So we're going to go on to John West now, a poster called Fishing.
Yeah, this was a fortuitous moment in time, I think, because this started life as a trade ad.
I was going to ask.
It was a young team. It was a young team. Julie and Richard, a young team, used to sit in the next office to us. We gave them this, and this was around John West Bear. We had a great client. We were doing amazing work, and everything became an opportunity. It was a trade ad, and so they came up with this idea. They walked into the office when Nick and I were sat at the desk, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and the light was streaming through the window, and they had a sheet of A2 paper with the ad on the back.
Drawn?
So we
worked up.
Just drawn with magic markers. And as I looked across, I could see the concentric circles and the little fishing rod in the middle. And I thought, and both Nick and I simultaneously said, that is absolutely brilliant. And they go, we haven't shown it to you yet. I said, no, trust me,
you don't need
that is
to,
brilliant.
Yeah,
and they put it on the table, and the first thing we said, this is not a trade ad. This is going to be a poster. This is going to be a press ad, and people need to see this and be rewarded by this. This is so good. It's designed to do exactly what it's intended to do. It's nothing but fish. It's a celebration of fresh. It says everything. And you go back to distilling right down. The purest distillation of an idea. This is everything that I'm talking about, and it comes right down to this. And then we got Andy Roberts to shoot it, and shot this beautiful thing. It presented itself. You didn't have to present it, so we just held it up, and the client just went, "Oh wow!"
Did the line already exist as part of the brief, or was it?
It was the brief. That was a way of saying the brief.
Okay.
So it was a piece of rational underpinning, which made the whole thing come to life in a fresh way. But this is for me is one of the, and again, bravery. I remember sitting in a meeting once. And someone saying to me, yeah, we love that ad. We think, everybody talks about this ad. But the only thing that's wrong with that ad, it's you've cropped the word John West in half.
No.
And you go, well,
it's the best thing about it.
And you just go, no, that's confidence. Everybody knows it's John West. It's a celebration of an iconic brand, a beloved brand, a people brand. And that's what it's about.
Yeah. I think you're right. Confident It's in a way, if you showed the whole thing, it would be too advertising and too tight. I mean, for me, just looking at it now, I love the delicacy of the fishing line. I wonder how many times you double, triple checked that would hold.
Totally
on the posters,
totally.
Because if it went too recessive, you wouldn't get it, or you wouldn't see it. If it's too heavy, it'd feel like a clunky hand.
Yeah, totally.
But on the logo crop, I think there are a number of brands that can legitimately get away with it, who are synonymous with the product that they serve.
Totally.
McDonald's is obviously one of them, and we're going to see some of your work that does that.
And you talk about the billboard only has room for the essential. You go back to the great poster designers. Maximum meaning, minimum means. I think that's a brilliant example of that, and a timeless poster that again demonstrates the power of the outdoor medium. I mean, this incredible pure form of advertising.
So let's move us on to some more food. So from
so
thin tuna,
Heinz salad.
Yeah, so there was a business problem here. We had a great client, but we had a massive business problem. So if you think back to your childhood. Heinz salad cream nestling in the cupboard next to the ketchup. It was a staple of British life. There were brilliant posters. I don't know if you remember the brilliant poster of a dollop of going on celery. Why celery has a groove. They'd always embraced really smart creative thinking and always produced really smart, intelligent communication. But we had a business problem, and the advent of mayonnaise, Hellmann's mayonnaise, et cetera, was sort of in the market, and this old-fashioned iconic product was sort of being, pushed to the back of the cupboard, and sales were eroding. So we needed to do something radical. So what we did was through the PR agency say that Heinz were discontinuing the brand, taking it off the shelves, which obviously caused public outcry. We were, aiming to get to a younger audience.
That was part of the campaign idea.
That
seed out.
And then we came back.
Smart.
Then we came back with this. So, and it was how do you liven up the dullest, blandest staple foods? Remember your target audience. We're talking to young students, kids who need to be entertained, need to be rewarded, need to participate. So that's where it started off, and they were really hard to reach, and really the work almost demanded to be not extreme, but quite edgy.
Yeah.
So the idea was any food tastes supreme with Heinz salad cream. What I loved about this line, this is Rob and Jack produced this campaign, was I remember David Abbott saying once that if you can get the brand name into the headline in a smart, intelligent way, that for me is always going to be the best version of it. Beans means Heinz. Yeah. Have a break, have a Kit Kat. Good food costs less at Sainsbury's. Heineken refreshes the pot, so the beers cannot reach. Any food tastes supreme with Heinz salad cream. So it had that rhythm, almost an old-fashioned rhythm to it, but it was beautiful. And then we wanted to celebrate it. So if anything, dull, boring food could taste brilliant, could taste supreme with the transformational quality of Heinz salad cream. So they had this idea that there was this guy, Mr. Mange 2, the mouth, who was famous for eating a Cessna 150 plane. And he was synonymous with eating indigestible objects. Seriously? So the boys came in and said, well, if he can eat a Cessna plane, surely he could eat a poster.
That'd be like a starter.
Again, we go back to the Cromwell Road. The Cromwell Road, the home of Araldite, the home of Nike, the home of the great work. So we had this captive audience. So over the course of 2 weeks, we got this character to physically eat the poster on a ladder with a bottle. Did time-lapse photography of the whole thing. So if you were commuting into London on the busiest road, I think it's the busiest or the second busiest road in Europe, where they literally just physically crawl, you're going to witness somebody devouring the contents of a poster.
I have so many questions. Part of what we do now is all this special build stuff, and I know the red tape that we have to go through to get permissions to do stuff. And I know this is a different time, but that's not an edible billboard. It's a billboard that's been eaten.
This guy's eaten a billboard.
Yeah.
And it's great. I mean, we're just looking at the images now. There's a little film I know on the lad's website, but we're seeing it in stills. But it's brilliant the way it just gets sort of
Just, you know,
munched to it.
And why eat it that way? It's like, leaving the best bit to last, isn't it?
Yeah, what's
It's
the
like-
best bit of the poster, mate?
my kids do that with a roast dinner.
Yeah, exactly. You always leave something.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat that last.
Yeah, and that's coming last.
I mean, I suppose, did that set the standard for that? Because there's a whole load of other ads.
There was a raft of stuff that came alongside that. We had taxi sides.
Yeah.
We took over taxi cabs in
Mr.
town.
Potato Head is good. as well.
It's either had meatloaf in here, and and if somebody asking to take to a pub, the Rat and Parrot.
Yeah.
So it was fun. There was the grub. There was the sausages. This was one of my favourites. Sink.
The sink.
This is just a beautiful.
My house, that is.
That is the perfect image. Sitting down, anything tastes supreme. We had this lovely commercial as well of this guy in his bedroom, student in his bedroom digs, and he discovered half in pizza. Slice of pizza under the bed, and he picked it up, and he's looking at it. It's got hairs on it, and all. He'd probably been there for a month. Yeah. And he walks down the staircase, and he puts his foot on the bin, and he's just about to pop it in, and he starts taking bits of stuff off it, and then applies the, and it was beloved by the student audience. They thought it was fantastic. Any food tastes supreme.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a great campaign, and again, it worked.
We're going to be swift now.
Yeah.
So this was visit for Heinz. So it's Heinz soup, right? This Yes.
The green looks like a star. And only when you put the logo on it does it become 5 stars.
And also they're called. So I was trying to write some notes last night and describe. I was saying the viney bit, the bit at the top, and then I went on to Staples and Mars's website, and it's called a sepal.
Sepal,
right?
Not a staple, a staple.
Exactly. So 5 sepals. In a row denote the 5-star rating. And I remember seeing this again. I was actually getting I was so jealous at the time of what Leos were doing. I think I must have been at BBH or something. I was just starting in the industry. But everything you seemed to touch was just gold, and it must have been a lovely time.
It was 2001 was a special year for us because it was every single person in the creative department got into D&AD.
Wow.
And during the course of D&AD, winning at D&AD, started off on the Monday and the results started to come in. And the final day was Friday. And there was one team that hadn't got into the book. And they did this beautiful typographical poster for 20p for an ice cream.
Oh, we've got that.
Looked like a face.
Yes.
And on Friday afternoon, about 2:00 in the afternoon, they found out that it finally got into the book, which meant a complete slam dunk for every single person.
And that's a celebration for everyone.
Well, it was like everybody is capable of world-class work.
Yeah.
And if D&AD is the standard, is the pinnacle of what the industry is producing or had produced that calendar year. And I'm not too sure how many agencies had every single team winning at D&AD.
Yes.
And what was, for me, it's always been about you do your best work for your biggest clients, your biggest brands. And if you look at the brands that we had, they were all iconic household brands, people brands. And we were doing really smart thinking right across the board.
That's the thing that really struck me. It wasn't just on, charities or smaller paying client. These were massive. These are these are the bread and butter. Excuse the pun.
And I know with this about the Heinz soup, but just going back to the salad cream one. This is at a time pre-social media, because the viral nature of the billboard being eaten
would have been
in
like
modern times. It would have been
Well, John West Bear was the sort of the godfather
of course,
of the viral effect, via email. But it was. But even the hot dog, that was. I mean, the story behind the hot dog was McDonald's are producing a hot dog. Oh my God, we should be synonymous with burgers, so we're going to do this hot dog. And literally in the meeting, I'm just looking at it and I'm scribbling away as I'm taking the brief from the client, and I just repeat. Oh God, that's the ad, isn't it?
Well, that's going to serve us as a beautiful transition and advert for next week's episode, because we are actually going to pause here before we move on to some fast food antics and you travelling across the pond.
Okay.
So thank you very much for joining us this week.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And we're looking forward to next week.
See you in a bit.
Are we going to grab some lunch before we do part 2? Or are we going to go straight into it?
We could have literally get a coffee and go for a little, what you call nature break.
Comfort break.
Oh, comfort break even.
A nature break would be a wild comfort break.
That's a bit weird. I always used to call it I'm going to see a man about a dog.
Oh, yeah?
Do you know that one?
No.
No, I'll just going for a piss. Okay. See you in a minute.
Okay, so that was the end of part 1. We are going to be back next week with part 2 of Tuts. So
where he's over in Chicago doing...
Where he is working on... Well, first of all, he starts working on McDonald's in London, then moves to Chicago to work on lots of stuff. We are going to have him back next week, but we are going to record with him straight after this. Yeah. But before we leave you, we need to say a massive thanks to our sponsor, Talent Outdoor. And we also want to say a big thanks to our podcast studio hosts here, Soho Radio, who have been nothing.
Rachel and Adrian have been amazing.
Rachel and Adrian, if you need a podcast, talk to them.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's do it.
Don't forget to follow us on social, and we shall
see you next time.
See you next time.